Alright, so in this video we're going to do some basic branching with Android Studio and also Github. We did talk about branching in the command line section, but we're now going to go through it and see how to put this into practice in Android Studio. So I've got the calculator application open that we've been working on. Now in order to get the branch operations related menu where we do the branching, we've got two options. We can either come up here to select VCS, Git, and then branches. Do it that way. Alternatively, we can come down here and click on this little master right down the bottom that shows the current branch repository, and we can do it from there. Personally, I like this second option down here. It's a bit more convenient than having to go through sort of two levels of menus. Just coming down and being able to click at the repository right there is a lot easier. So I'm going to be using that in this video, but either way will work. Alright, so under here, now that I've clicked that, I'm going to click on New Branch because we're going to go ahead and create a new branch. When we do that, you can see it's coming up and asking for the name of the branch. Now we are going to create a number of branches in this video, so we're going to just try and name them something that will tell us which one's which. So branch-L. And here the L suffix means that we're going to limit operations on this branch locally. Now in a real world application you probably wouldn't name it like that. You'd use something to denote the type of the reason for the branch, a new version of the application, something along those lines. But for simplicity we're going to name it with that convention here in this video. I click OK to create the branch. And two things to notice: you get this little green pop-up message up here that pops up that says branch L was created. And also over here to the right down in the little pop-up menu that we can click, it's changed to show that branch. And these are really helpful. The Android Studio integration of Git is very good, and it will often pop up little green messages like this when it does something. So watch out for those because they are very useful to keep track of. Alright, so we've gone ahead and created a branch, and notice that when we created the branch, it automatically switched to that branch we created as well. That's part and parcel of what happens. Alright, so let's switch to the master branch by coming down here again, because we're on branch L at the moment. So we're going to click on Master, Origin Master, Checkout. So Master, Origin Master, then we select Checkout. And you notice that the repository name's changed there. So we're now working on the master. So let's now create another branch in the same manner as we created the first one. So I'm going to click on that again, click on New Branch. And let's call this one Branch LR1. Now the suffix LR means that the branch is going to be involved both in local and remote operations. So again, that's really just for this video to show you what we're going to be doing. Click on OK. And again, if I wanted to, I could select another branch at any time, click on Checkout. Or I could come back here, click on the LR branch that we just created and check that out. So you can see we're currently working on the LR1 branch that we just created. Alright, so how do we go about pushing a local branch to GitHub? So what we're going to do is we're going to push this local branch, this Git branch LR1 that we created, to GitHub. Now the first thing we need to do is make sure that it's the active branch, which it is now, and we can see that by the fact that down here at the bottom it's got branch LR1, so that's the current branch. Then we can just come up here into VCS. We can do a git and a push. And of course we can also use the shortcut here to do the same thing. And this pops up the commit changes, so we can change that if we want to and come back here to VCS, click on Git and select Push to see push specific commands. So notice the difference there. If you want to get the specific commands instead of a generic command, you need to go into the Git menu. So it's probably better in this case to go into that Git menu to get the exact message, and it gives us more information about the branch and what we're doing. So I can see here it's saying basically the branch LR1, remembering that that was created locally, we're pushing that to the origin, which is the remote repository on GitHub, and plus branch LR1 means it's going to create that branch on the remote repository. So I'm going to click on push now. Right, and it tells us down here in this little green pop-up, push successful, pushed branch LR1 to new branch, origin/branch-LR1. So that should mean in theory that it's now on GitHub. So let's go and have a look and see whether it made it to GitHub. Going to GitHub. We go into our calculator app. Notice we've now got 2 branches. Click on branches, and there's the branch LR1, but it's also showing that this is the active branch as well, which is exactly what we want. And if we just go back to the main repository again, notice we've also got this option down here, this drop down. We can select the branch we want from here as well. So either way, you've got the option. The reason why that's showing that it's an hour ago is because the code has been changed about an hour ago. Because if you recall, we didn't make any changes to the source files at all. Really, we've just created a new branch, but the code itself is still probably an hour or so old, and that would be in line with the previous video that I created when we actually made the last change to this repository. So you might be wondering at this point, why would you push a branch to GitHub? Well, let's think of a scenario where perhaps you're working with another user, another developer maybe, and there's a new feature that you want to add to an application. Now, you may not be ready to merge this change. In other words, you might be testing it or maybe you're sending it for another developer to have a look at. So before we merge it into our main code, we might want to share the feature code base with a fellow developer. For example, I might be wanting to do that for BibHash so that he can examine the code, perhaps changes that I've made and provide me feedback and maybe even enhance it. So by pushing the branch to GitHub, BibHash can then check out that on his machine without affecting anything else. Now, obviously, GitHub's got other collaboration workflows. We could use pull requests to do the same. We saw that in the previous video, but this is a good alternative depending on the nature of the change and what you're trying to achieve. All right, so let's change things around a little bit now, and let's create a branch on GitHub. So come up here to this branch menu. We're going to type in the name. So we're going to call it, we'll call this one branch R. Branch-R, R to denote that this is remote, since we're going to use this branch only for remote operations. Note also when I started typing that it came up and gave us an option to create the branch. And that's obviously what we want to do here at this point in time. Click on create. You can see we've got 3 branches now. We've got the branch R is now the one that's been selected. So just to confirm, we can drop that list down. So we've now got branch LR1, which was the one that came from Android Studio, branch R, which we've just created, and master, which was the original one when the repository was created. All right, so let's create a second one, branch dash, and we'll call this one LR2. And the LR signifies that the branch is going to be involved in both remote and local operations. And again, I'm not suggesting you do that this way. I'm really only doing this to show you how you go about creating branches, or if branches were being created by other developers. All right, so let's go ahead and create that. So we've now got 4 branches, and we've got the branch LR1 and LR2. Remembering that LR2 is the one that has been created on GitHub. LR1 was created in Android Studio. All right, so let's go back to Android Studio now. And let's go to VCS, Git, and we're going to do fetch. So that actually fetches changes in GitHub, but won't do a merge operation. And that's applicable here because we've got nothing to merge since we made no changes to the Android Studio project. In other words, there's no artifacts changed either in Android Studio or on GitHub. So what we're doing with the git fetch command is just syncing our local repository with the remote branch references. So now that we've done that, we come over here and click on the git branch down here in the taskbar. Notice we've got the branches showing up. We've got the LR2 branch and also the branch R, which were the branches created on GitHub. And bearing in mind that simulates also another developer creating a branch that you could, by just using the fetch command, we're able to get access to those branches ultimately. Now notice also with this pop-up, I'll leave this popped up for a short while we talk about it. There's 2 sections in the branches. We've got local branches and remote branches. So local branches at the top there highlighted with branch L, then below that we've got remote branches. And there can actually be 3 possibilities. The type 1 is a branch that appears in both sections, and that means that it exists both locally and has also been pushed up to GitHub, or the branch lived on GitHub and has been pulled or fetched in the local repository. So in other words, it's in both. Type 2 here is a branch that appears in local branches, means that it exists in the local repository and hasn't been pushed to GitHub. You can see that's the case with that branch L at the moment, because that's the one that we created purely on this machine. We've never pushed that to GitHub. Now type 3 is a branch that appears in remote branches only, and it means that it's been fetched but not pulled locally, and has a remote reference to it in the local repository. It's really not something you're going to come across that often. It's really type 1 and type 2 that you're going to be seeing. So looking through at the various options that of the branches showing on the screen, we've got branch L, which is a type 2, and that's a local branch only. We've got branch LR1, which is a local branch, and that's currently the branch that we've selected down here down the bottom. You can see it says current branch LR1, but that also exists in the remote repository because it has been pushed. So in other words, it's a remote reference. Now branch LR2 currently is a type 3, so it's a remote reference only, but we're going to make that a type 1 shortly, which is again a type 1 is a branch that appears in both sections. And branch R down here, that is still a type 3, so it's only a remote reference only. And the last one here is the origin master. This is the remote reference of the local master, and obviously that matches in with our local branch. Okay, so now that we've fetched branch LR2, so it's showing up in the remote branches, let's actually check out as a new local branch, which means that it will exist in our local repository as well. So it will actually become a type 1, which will appear in both the local branches and the remote branches. So I'm going to go to LR2, click on that, click on check out as new local branch. I'm going to select the default name or leave the default name, click on OK. And you can see the little green pop-up message again has told us that it's checked out branch or new branch LR2 from origin/branch LR2. So if you go back now and click on the pop-up, you can see we've now got that entry showing in the local branches, LR branch LR1, origin branch LR1 showing. And the reason that's showing up this time and it wasn't last time is because we've now selected branch LR2. And we did that when we created the new branch. And again, we can see that. I could select another branch, check out, and come back here again. Notice now we can see the branch LR2 is showing in the local branch, and it's also existing in the remote branch. So this is one of those things where you play around with it a little bit and it'll become very familiar. And in this scenario that I'm showing you, it would be very rare for you to create all the branches we've created at a time. Most likely you'd find that in a given application you're developing, you may never create a branch, or it could be something you sort of only do very infrequently. So I guess we put everything in together and made it quite a complex thing for this video, just to show you how these things work. But it's not something you'll be doing that often. All right, so the next thing is, how do we go about deleting a remote branch? Well, that's actually quite easy too. If we wanted to say delete the origin branch R, so we've decided that we don't want that in our system, bearing in mind that this is actually a type 3 because it's never existed on the local repository. So how do we actually remove that? So we just click on that. We can click on delete. And then we confirm the confirmation. Delete. And you can see the confirmation over there in green, deleted remote branch origin/branch R. Click on the list again, and you notice that the branch R under remote branches has now been removed. All right, so how do we go about deleting a branch, let's say branch LR2, that is synced locally and remote? Because obviously we've just removed the remote branch that hadn't ever been synced on this local machine. So how do we go about doing that? So for example, the branch LR2, which we know is both now a local branch and also a remote branch. So how would we delete that? Well, firstly, you delete the remote reference by clicking on the origin branch LR2 and selecting delete. Then the pop-up comes up. Now we do want to click on this option here, delete tracking local branch LR2 as well. That's optional. If for some reason you wanted to keep it in the local repository but only remove it from the remote one, you could do that. But here we want to delete both, so I'm going to check the checkbox and click on delete. Give it a moment to update because of course it's accessing GitHub as well. And again, the confirmation message from Android Studio is that it's deleted the remote branch origin/branch LR2, but also deleted the local branch LR2. So let's check the local branch. We can see the local branch LR2 no longer exists, and either does the remote. Then the big test will then go over to GitHub. Let's do that. And we'll do a refresh and reload. And I'm getting a 404 because I was actually on the branch LR2 tree. So that's confirmation that it was in fact deleted. So let's delete that part of the URL. Press enter. Notice the number of branches has dropped down to 2 now. The only branches we've got left now, if I click that, is the LR1 branch and the original master branch. So both the branch LR2 and branch R have been deleted from GitHub. Okay, so that's how you go about using branches in Android Studio. So in the next video, let's have a look at merging, which is something that will be fairly regular basis as a developer. I'll see you in the next video.